Student-Crestwood Middle School next, Matthew Longest, and the administrators are here as well. The administrator for the school is Kelly Greenberg, counselor for the school, and say a few words.
I wrote a speech, so please bear with me. It is my pleasure to introduce to you Crestwood's most improved student, Matthew Longest. The transition to middle school was not the easiest for Matthew. As you can imagine, it is difficult for many students. Matthew had difficulty forming positive relationships with his peers and spent a lot of time in the counselor's office trying to problem solve around different issues. You see, Matthew is a rule follower, and if you weren't following the rules, he was going to tell you about it. As you can probably imagine, this doesn't always go over well in the middle school classroom, and this would usually result in some sort of peer conflict. Matthew got along great with adults in the building, but his ability to get along with peers needed some work. When I looked at my list of 180 8th graders to choose the nominee for this award, Matthew's was the only name that really stood out to me as deserving, and here's why. Early on, it was hard for Matthew to acknowledge his involvement in these situations, and he was often frustrated. Now, of course, Matthew was not the only one to blame, but I tried really hard to get him to focus on his own behavior and responses to these situations, because after all, we can't control what others do or say. We can only control ourselves. Over time, when we were problem solving together, Matthew started to finish my sentences when we talked. He was listening to what I was trying to teach him. This turned into Matthew stopping me before I could even get my point out. Miss Greenberg, I know what you're going to say. And then he would own his behavior, tell me how he could have handled things differently, and make a plan to make it right. He stopped focusing on what others were doing and started taking accountability for himself. For a student who was frequently in the counseling office in 6th and 7th grade, as an 8th grader, he has learned to manage conflicts on his own, or at best, avoid them. I realized he is no longer visiting my office. I'm trying not to take that personally. I have to seek him out in the hallways or the classroom to check in with him. Matthew has taken the tools his counselors have been teaching him and applying them in and outside of the classroom. He has dramatically improved peer relationships, has a group of friends he sits with at lunch, and is even starring as Cogsworth in the school production of Beauty and the Beast later this week. Shameless plug. He is smiling more and his self-confidence has grown. Even his work completion and grades have significantly improved. One day last year, Matthew was upset and having a difficult day. He looked at me and said, "What's the point?" Well, Matthew, I want to say that this is the point. You've chosen to listen, learn, and grow from your mistakes. It made me cry. You persevered through a difficult time and never gave up even when you wanted to. You now have the ability to own your actions, say I'm sorry, and you allow yourself to forgive others. I admire your willingness to forgive and try again. Matthew, on behalf of the Crestwood Middle School staff, I want to say we are proud of you and are happy to present you with this award.
I want to thank my mom and my dad for motivating me to do my work. I want to thank Miss Greenberg for helping me out a lot, especially when times were really hard and I was having problems. She really helped me out. Miss Buckman, she was such a great friend to me always, and she always was able to give me great advice in really hard situations.
Wow, great job.